Good morning, colleagues. We've got a lot to discuss.
How far would you go to uncover the truth? Would you risk everything, your safety, your reputation, even your very identity? What if it meant reinventing yourself, completely, from the ground up? How about risking years of your life? Would you really do it, just to make sure the bad guys don't win? One of our West Yorkshire detectives did exactly that. She infiltrated the very heart of Labour's inner circle, risking exposure every single day, gathering evidence that would send shockwaves through Britain. What she uncovered wasn't just political maneuvering, it was something far more sinister. Stay with us as we'll uncover her findings.
That we're going to do things differently. We're going to tell the truth, even when they are hard truths.
Secret tax plans are designed to raid your life while keeping you in the dark. A deliberate cover-up of the Pakistani grooming gang crisis, where children's suffering was weighed against political gains. And most chillingly, an astonishing betrayal of the NHS, recordings of Labour ministers laughing about scrapping NHS England, calling it a necessary sacrifice. This isn't just another political scandal. This is a carefully calculated assault on everyday Brits, and it's time you heard the truth. Have you ever wondered what it takes to infiltrate the most powerful political party in Britain? To sit at the same table as those shaping the future of the country? Our detective, a former West Yorkshire officer with decades of experience, wasn't just another investigator. She was a ghost, slipping unnoticed through layers of security that would expose any ordinary person within minutes. Labour's vetting process is extensive, and their background checks are ruthless. Starmer's closest allies are constantly on high alert, always watching for infiltrators. It's a system designed to protect secrets they never wanted you to hear. So how did our West Yorkshire detective pull it off? She didn't just sneak in, she became one of them. She created an entirely new identity, a wealthy donor, passionate about progressive policies, someone Labour couldn't afford to ignore. Political parties have always given special access to those with deep pockets, and Labour is no different. Through careful manipulation, our West Yorkshire detective secured invitations to exclusive events where the real conversations happened, far away from cameras and journalists. Imagine her, sitting in her car before her first major meeting, heart-pounding, rehearsing every detail of his cover story. One slip, one misplaced word, and it would all be over. But with a deep breath, she straightened her classy short gown and walked majestically into the lion's den. The infiltration was methodical. She started small, attending local constituency meetings where suspicions were low. But she wasn't there to eavesdrop, she was there to climb. She gradually worked his way up, attending regional events, meeting cabinet ministers, and building credibility. This wasn't a reckless operation, it was professional and strategic, the work of a woman who had spent her life catching criminals. Her cover had to be perfect, and it was. No one suspected a thing. But how do you gather evidence without getting caught? Our West Yorkshire came prepared. She was armed not with weapons, but with recording devices disguised as everyday objects. A pen, a wristwatch, and of course a coffee mug with a built-in microphone. Every meeting, every conversation was recorded. Over 6 months, she gathered over 200 hours of damning evidence. And what do these recordings reveal? It was worse than anyone could have imagined. Behind closed doors, Labour wasn't the party they presented to the public. When they thought they were safe, when they thought no one was listening, they spoke with chilling honesty. They laughed at voters, mocked broken promises, and laid out policies in secret that they would never dare mention in public. The contrast between public Labour and private Labour was nothing short of shocking. Let's talk about those secret tax plans. What our detective uncovered is enough to make your blood boil. Labour has promised repeatedly not to raise taxes on working people. But in private meetings, their ministers were plotting the opposite, their strategy. Disguise tax hikes as reforms, manipulate the wording, and make changes so technical that by the time you realize what's happened, it's too late. Let's break it down. First, Labour planned to remove national insurance exemptions for working pensioners. Imagine your 70-year-old neighbour, working part-time just to afford the basics, suddenly facing hundreds of pounds in new taxes. How is that fair? How is that protecting the vulnerable?
They are worried that they're going to be plunged into so much poverty. A lot of people are barely managing, so they're not even going to be able to barely manage.
Then there's capital gains tax. Labour wants to match it with income tax rates, devastating small business owners. Think about your local baker, the one who spent 40 years building something from nothing. When they try to sell and retire, Labour's plan will slash the value of their life's work overnight. And inheritance tax, Labour's plan is a direct contradiction of their public promises. Rachel Reeves, Labour's shadow chancellor, looked straight into the camera and swore she wouldn't expand inheritance tax. But in private, she's telling donors the exact opposite. If they'll lie about this, what else are they lying about? But the most disgusting part, the way Labour ministers laughed about their deception. Ice clinking in glasses, smug grins, open mockery of the very people they claim to represent. One minister actually chuckled, saying, "The average Brit won't understand the technical changes until it's too late. That's how they see you, as too dumb to notice what they're doing." And it gets worse, because what our detective uncovered next goes beyond politics. It's a betrayal of the most innocent, the most vulnerable children who suffered while Labour turned a blind eye. The recordings captured senior Labour officials coldly discussing the Pakistani grooming gang scandal, not in terms of justice, but in terms of votes. One official admitted, "We can't talk about this publicly. The Pakistani community votes for us in huge numbers. We'd be finished in dozens of constituencies." Read that again. They didn't act because they were scared of losing votes. They calculated the cost of protecting children against the cost of political power, and they chose power. There's more. Documents show Labour strategists broke down the electoral risks, constituency by constituency. They didn't just ignore the scandal, they actively covered it up, pressuring police to downplay the ethnic backgrounds of suspects. They saw this as a political win, not as the moral failure it truly was. And then, the NHS, Labour's public message. "We're saving the NHS. The truth, they're dismantling it." In private, Labour ministers call scrapping NHS England a necessary sacrifice. Why? So they can cut 9,000 jobs. And they know how to spin it. "We'll frame it as removing wasteful bureaucracy," one minister said. "People will thank us for it, but these aren't bureaucrats, they are the people keeping the NHS running." And Labour is treating them like pawns in a political game. This is the real Labour Party, a party that lies to your face while laughing behind closed doors. A party that sacrifices children to protect votes. A party that dismantles the NHS while pretending to save it. The evidence is here. The question is, what will you do with it? Britain, the choice is yours. Will you allow this deception to continue? Or will you demand accountability, because now, thanks to one brave West Yorkshire detective, you know the truth. And the truth cannot be ignored.